Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Energy Connects discussions with me, Chiranjib Sengupta, in the run-up to International Women's Day. Today, we are celebrating women leaders in the energy sector who are driving the industry forward. And to talk more about that, I'm delighted to be joined today by Molly Determan, President at the Energy Workforce and Technology Council in Houston. Molly, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
And just to start off, how can the energy industry become more diverse? And in your experience across multiple stakeholders, have you seen the industry evolve in terms of diversity and gender balance?
In short, yes, we have seen advancement, but we also see that we have a lot of work still to do. We need everybody in order to shape the future of industry. So we need to attract diverse, innovative talent. And there's a lot of ways to look at diversity that goes beyond skin deep. Like we're talking about, that diversity, but also diversity of thought, experiences that leads to exploring challenges in different ways, and which is going to help us to advance the energy industry of the future. So we need to be focused on attracting that talent, but we also have to focus on retention too, keeping our underrepresented populations. And so we can do that. We can attract talent. We can keep talent by doing things like increasing flexibility. So I represent the service and equipment companies, and a lot of our jobs are in the field and manufacturing. And so when we're talking about flexibility, we're talking about not just in the office, but also those employees as well. And so also when we're talking about flexibility, it's no matter your stage of life, it's beyond just a mom or parents. Like we're looking at like how we can help people to maintain a better balance in their life, because I think that that's where our workforce wants us to be. We also are looking at, advancement opportunities. So mentorship, sponsorship, leadership role modeling, and two others, pay equity is an important issue. And in fact, that's come up for, diversity, but also for like with inflation, as we have had, our talent pool coming in at a higher wage rate than our existing workforce. That's created a pay gap also. And so having those systems in place around pay equity helps us address those issues as they come up. And then finally, upskilling and reskilling, investing in our existing talent and our existing workforce to help keep them and help us grow.
That's an excellent point. And you touched on a lot of things which are usually, there's no spotlight on these issues when we typically talk about gender balance and diversity. But that brings me to Energy Workforce and Technology Council itself. Could you talk to us more about how it supports women professionals within the energy industry?
So Energy Workforce, we have long been committed to helping our companies and our sector build more inclusive cultures to support women professionals in the industry, to keep all of our underrepresented talent. And so we have done a number of things. We have workforce development programs and training opportunities that are like, we do that at an organizational level and looking at that and best practice sharing, but then also for individual contributors, how they can foster inclusive cultures. Something that I'm really proud of that we did in 2018, we partnered with Accenture on the first diversity study for the OFS sector. And so we've done that study every 3 years. We did it in 21, and then we're doing it again this year. We're actually going to be launching the results of that study soon. And so when we first did the study in 2018, we just did it on gender. And then the next iteration, we added race and ethnicity. We found that women in 2021, now that's based off of 2020 data, okay? The 2020 data, there were record number of women leaving the workforce. And so women were represented in 19% in our sector, which is an increase from the first study, but it trails the overall representation of women in the workforce, which is about 47% in the US where we sit. So we also have challenges in leadership roles too. So when we get into like the technical side and operations, and so what we continue, we're committed to doing this study, and our members are committed to doing this study because we can't change what we don't measure. So we provide that data to them so that they can benchmark themselves against the sector, but also their progress and how they're doing over the years, and they can know where to focus and target. But when we first did that study and we shared it with our member company CEOs, the reaction that we got was, that's really insightful information, but what do we do with it? And so we kind of went back and we asked, our members the question, what now what? And so out of that, we created a toolkit that has actionable recommendations for our companies. And it also has a maturity index so they can see what the steps are that they need to take to increase their maturity. And so that toolkit gets updated every time that we update the study too, with the findings from the study. Now what are the next steps that our companies need to be taking? So, we really believe firmly in creating a forum in which our companies can share best practices, because this is an industry-wide challenge that we are facing. And I am so impressed that these competitors come together and recognize that we are better together, and we will make progress and change more quickly when we are being open and sharing with each other.
I think that's a fantastic overview, and great to see that you're navigating this challenge in consort with all your stakeholders in such a very methodical and logical, number-driven, data-driven manner. Now, we are talking about an industry, which is always evolving. And today we have a lot of new technologies in place. We have a lot of diversification that's going on in terms of energy sources.
Mm-hmm.
But can you talk to us about how that actually helps promote diversity and gender equity within the energy industry? And how do you see that as actually benefiting the industry?
I mean, I think you're right. There has been a lot of development of new technologies. We're also working across energies. And so, if you're just even looking at the oil and gas side of the industry, like from the electrification of the oil field that's going on right now to the implementation of AI, we're revolutionizing the industry again. Like, we always make advancements in this industry based on technology. That is our history, and that is what we will continue to do. So it's an exciting place to be. But now, with those challenges that we're facing, we need a broader range of skill sets today. And a lot of times, some of those skill sets compete with big tech. So in order to compete, we have to match the workforce desires, but we also have to present ourselves as an industry that's innovating and powering the global economy. And I think that our industry aligns with the values of those people that are not, traditionally ones that would be in the oil and gas industry. Our values align, and our values align with also newer generations that are entering the workforce. But because of the misperceptions about the industry, they might not know that. And so we have a lot of education that we have to do on behalf of the industry in order to bring those new skill sets in. But I definitely see it as benefiting the industry because we are a technology-driven industry and innovation drives us. Bringing in new schools of thought, that's only going to help us solve these really big, complex energy challenges that we are facing.
I think that's really well put, that how innovation drives the industry. And just circling back to your earlier point about how you shared the data insights with the CEOs of your the member CEOs of the companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be your message to the workforce of the future, and to ensure that gender balance and diversity and equity that we are talking about today on the eve of International Women's Day, that it actually translates into action and makes a difference rather than being mere tokenism?
I mean, we certainly don't want this to be tokenism, right? We don't want this just to be virtue signaling. That is not what this is about. This is about culture change and not just an initiative. Because if we are embedding it into our workforce, our company cultures, which they are, then it is part of how we do business, and it helps our businesses. And it's, in addition to helping our businesses, there's business cases that show when you have a diverse leadership team, when you have diversity within your organizations, it leads to better returns. So the business case is there, but in addition to that, it's the right thing to do. For the long-term longevity of our industry and being able to create cultures that will make this a destination workplace.
Molly, thank you so much for talking to us today. And it's been great talking to you and for your fascinating insights.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for joining us and wish you a very happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more guests from across the energy industry on Energy Connects discussions. Until then, goodbye.